What up, my beautiful family? It's your favorite cousin, your favorite uncle, your favorite nephew, your favorite son, your favorite father, your best friend's best friend. It's me, Dr. Larry, and welcome to Living For You, the YouTube channel. As I always say, it's a safe space, a positive place in which we grow together, and we come here to unite in minds so that we learn to live our best present lives, not in the future, but today. If you want to know more about me, if you're new to the channel, you can go and find out more about me at www.liveforyoucoaching.com. That is my business website. It is Live For You Coaching, which is a life and spiritual coaching firm. So more information about that and what we have to offer is at www.liveforyoucoaching.com. And if you want to follow me personally, just kind of ins and outs of my life and as things go on in the world that I talk about or that I post about, you can actually follow me on social media on both Facebook and Instagram at Dr. Larry Smith. That's Dr. Larry Smith on both Instagram and Facebook. So I wanted to get on today because I would be honest, I was in a store and I was, being me, just purchasing, doing what I do. And me being just the southern boy that I am. If you guys don't know much about me, I am from the deep south. I am from a town called Lafayette, Louisiana, by way of Georgia, Atlanta, Columbus, But I am a true and blue southern boy living in Southern California, and I've been here for almost 8 years. Actually, it'll make 8 years soon. And I am the type of person who is just, my southernisms, I can't turn off because this is who I've been all my life. And so I always say yes ma'am, no sir. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're younger than me, whether you're older than me, whether you're black, whether you're white, Hispanic or Asian, gay or straight, it doesn't matter. Trans or non-trans, cisgender, none of that matters to me. I always, whatever you're presenting as, I always, yes ma'am, yes sir, no ma'am, no sir. And so I had a lady at the register. She was like, oh, you don't have to call me ma'am. We might be the same age and blah, blah, blah. And I told her, I said, it's not about age for me. I said, it's just I'm a southerner and, and it just, And then she went on to give me a story on how she grew up with a southern grandmother from Louisiana. And she would get in trouble if she didn't say yes ma'am, no sir. So that's how I know me and her probably was about the same age, because we're from that generation in which people still had to say that to adults, and you were a kid that was seen but not often heard, which I don't 100% agree with, but it was that generation. Why judge it? It's over. But the yes ma'am, no ma'am for me is just kind of embedded in my psyche being from the South. And she acknowledged that she was like that too and all this, but somebody actually got mad at her for saying yes ma'am and I'm not a ma'am, I'm not old and this. But having that conversation, where I'm heading, having that conversation reminded me of the need to allow people to just show up as they show up. As long as it's not hurting you in any kind of physical way, putting your life in any kind of danger, or those you love in any kind of danger, or harming them in any kind of physical way, there's no sense in trying to disrupt someone else's being, right? That you have to be this. Because what I've noticed with a lot of people, especially in modern times, I've noticed that a lot of people want people to make them feel comfortable to be around them. So that means you got to do certain things, you got to talk a certain way, you got to be a certain way, act a certain way, say certain things in order to make them comfortable just to be around you. And what I have learned in my life, and damn near almost into my my fourth decade on this planet, what I have learned is that if someone wants you to be different to be around them, then you don't need to be around them. If somebody wants you to accommodate them in order to just be in their space, then you don't need to be in their space, because they're not your people. Because people who are your people will accept you in your present fullness, authentic self. They know who you are, they know your quirks, your ins and outs. Now that's not to say they like everything about you, because we all have quirks and stuff that people are just not going to like about us. But they're not telling you to change those things for their benefits. Now, if it's certain things that they see as detrimental to you or it's not a good habit, then they might give you a little bit of wise advice to be a better person. But they're not doing it in the sense of you have to do it to make me happy. They're saying that I want you to do it because I love you, and I want to not see you go through stuff that I know this might create challenges for you. But we have got to, as a people, which like I said, I've noticed in modern times, this is hard for people to do, but we have got to, as a people, to just allow people to just be. Do you know the level of peace that you would have if you stopped trying to change somebody in your life? If you stop trying to create somebody in your image, do you know, and I know I'm talking to somebody. I could be talking to myself in this years ago because this was me. Do you know the peace you would have if you weren't trying to change your child? Do you know the peace you would have if you weren't trying to change your spouse or your husband or your significant other? Do you know the peace, teachers, you would have if you weren't trying to change your students? Do you know the peace you would have, ministers, if you weren't trying to change the people who go to your church? Do you know the peace you would have if you would just allow people to show up as they be? You guys know we live in a moment with the whole Karen phenomenon, and I don't even have to go in that. I got videos in the catalog about that. The whole thing behind Karenism is other people jumping into other people's lives, telling them what they should and should not do, how they can and cannot be in their own experience. And as you can see, that don't play well because people don't like to be told what to do. And secondly, you look obnoxious. You look crazy trying to manipulate someone else's experience of just showing up in the planet. It's crazy. And you know where that comes from? The need to want to change other people to conform to yourself. One, it comes from ego. The ego's mindset, the mindset that everything revolves around your world and that you're driven by the impulse of your satisfaction as opposed to being driven by something deeper. That's the first thing. The second thing is a selfish thing, right? It's all about you. So in order for me to be happy, I need people just to accommodate to me in order for me to be happy. That is not only a selfish thing, that's also an insecurity, because you're a person who needs some other people or someone outside of yourself to fuel your peace and to fuel your happiness and to make you feel complete. You got to get other people to accommodate you. And then lastly, it comes from a place of judgmental perspective. Clearly you think that there's something you have that other person doesn't have, or there's something you have that other person needs or should need or should want and desire, that you feel obligated to interject your nitpickiness into their lives instead of just letting people be themselves authentically in the present. We do this so often, in relationships. And like I said, my challenge with not allowing people to be came from me being in relationships. And when I got in relationships, I had this mindset that a relationship had to be this and this and this and this and this. And I had to check off all of the boxes. And if the person didn't match what was in the little boxes for me, then I had to say, well, you got to do this, and you got to do this, and you should do this, and this should be this, trying to get them to conform to some arbitrary list that I had created in my fantasy world of what I thought was perfect. But I was wrong. I was wrong. And if I can be clear and honest and transparent, those were many days I was tormented and tortured and upset and had anxiety and sad and unfulfilled and hated my relationships and just hated everything and just thought, and then I went to the inevitable place and started to blame myself. Well, what is it in me that I keep attracting people who are not going to live up to my list? And so it's funny to me today because I can look back on it and realize just how neurotic I was about changing someone else's being. If people are your people, they're going to be your people. You don't have to create someone in your image or in what image that you think is a good image for your comfort. It is a stress that we do not have to have. You can choose to just accept people the way they be. And of course, when we talk about acceptance of someone's being, it automatically, the conversation has to be an introspective conversation. What do I mean by that? Most of the people who spend their time trying to change somebody else and trying to make somebody conform to their stuff and their being and their list and all this stuff are somebody who more than likely themselves do the same thing. They overexert themselves trying to be the people pleaser. You've heard the people pleaser, right? Everybody can depend on the people pleaser because they're going to always show up and make sure things get done for everybody else. I've been there too. That was part of my insecurity and why I was trying to change people, because I was a people person and thought, well, I'm manipulating myself for you all. Why can't you manipulate yourself for me? I'm overexerting myself for you. Why can't you exert yourself for me? And so usually there are people who aren't being themselves authentically. Usually there are people who aren't really accepting and loving themselves as they are. It took years, and when I say years, okay? And there's still traces of that within me today, for me to come to a place of total self-appreciation and total self-awareness and total self-acceptance. I had to come to the place in which I said, you know what? I have flaws, I have scars, I have histories, I have a past, I've had traumas, I have blessings, I have talents, I have gifts, I have shortcomings, and I have strengths. And at the end of the day, it is who I am. And I accept and embrace and take ownership of all of it. Of all of it. The things I can work on, I can work on. The things that are out of my control, I let go and let God. And the things that are good and of quality, if I can heighten them and use them more, I use them more. For example, I was always a person who likes to talk. And if you're one of my friends, and I'm laughing because I'm thinking of certain people who would agree with that statement as I am saying it. I've always been a person who likes to talk. And so, but I was a person who liked to talk, but it was more interpersonal, small groups. And when I was younger, like 12, 13, I was actually afraid to get out in front of people and speak. Now I know I've always wanted to be a teacher, but you would think I would just have this courage to just get out there and speak to people. And I didn't always have that. And so when I was a kid, being a Jehovah's Witness, I started publicly speaking to 200, 300 people. And at first I'd be a ball of sweat and just nervous and just a mess. But I realized that it was one of my strengths. And so something came in me probably from when I was about 20, 21, 22. And I realized that I have a gift for speaking. Not just because I like to speak, but I can do it with clarity and I can do it with a skill that some people haven't gotten. That's one of my strengths, my talents, my gifts. And so I began to be more comfortable with that gift. And so now you have me here speaking, and I speak to a lot of people in front of a lot of people, and I don't really get stage fright like an average person or like I would have gotten when I was 12 and 13 years old. So the strength that I realized I had, I enhanced it. On the other hand, I realized that there were things about me, and I'll continue in the path of me speaking. I realized that later on, obviously, that I spoke too much sometimes. And sometimes I would speak and not give people I'm having a conversation with the opportunity to express themselves. And a lot of times when I would have the conversation, it would be about me. And I would never give them a chance in a conversation we're having together to talk about them. And so my speaking sometimes became a downfall because I was not allowing other people to express themselves, and it was kind of hard to have a conversation with me. At least that's what I was told, and at least that's what when I started to actually pay attention, I started to notice. And so I had to work on that. I had to learn to shut up, be quiet, listen, let people speak, interact, and that's something I'm still working on even to this day. I've gotten a whole lot better than where I was, but I can still continue to work on that because that's a good trait to continue to work on. And so the thing is, either way, whichever direction that went, I had to come to a full acceptance of who I was, who I am, in order for me to be able to just be there and be able to work on stuff, or be able to enhance the good things, or even be able to just simply love me for me and stop trying to change and conform myself for everyone and everything and life situations around me. So for me, self-love was what I needed to do in order for me to accept others as they are. But without a doubt, it is more peaceful, less stressful, less of a headache if you just allow people to be themselves. And that's even in the relationship. If you ain't compatible, you ain't compatible. Children, if your child is just not your cup of tea, your child is just not your cup of tea. If your parents, it's just not your cup of tea. Your parents are just not your cup of tea. You deal with them in love, and you deal with them when you have to, but you don't have to force anything. You choose because you allow them to be who they are, and you choose based on who you are, whether or not you're going to engage, interact, deal with, do all those things in the time frame that you're going to do it. But either way, you're not trying to change them to comfort you. You're allowing them to be them. You're using your own personal feelings and your own personal being to determine whether or not that is something that you're going to endure for a long period of time. I have siblings, I have family members, I have friends that personality-wise, it's hard to be around. And I make adjustments. I deal with them, but I don't go into the situation saying, you have to be different in order to accommodate me. I can't do that. I won't do that. I'm not going to do that. And so it is important that we see that we live in that space and we be in that space. Stop trying to change people. Allow people to be fully present as they are. And that way you give yourself peace. You also allow people the room to grow and to just show up, and they're comfortable around you and they're not tense, and the interactions are going to be a lot better. I promise you, if you just simply allow people to be. That's it. That's all. That was on my spirit so heavy. You can see my laughs were coming because I was just thinking like, wow, we try to change people a lot. And for many, many, many reasons, but just don't do that. Allow people to be. You be who you are. I love you for who you are, and those people who are your people are going to love you for who you are. And you dote that same grace. You give that same grace out to the world, and it will give it back to you 10 times fold. That's it. I love it, you guys. We come here and we talk about some pretty good stuff. I feel it. Maybe it's just me. Is it just me? If it's not just me, hit that like button and let me know that you like what I'm doing. Share the videos if you want to share the videos. Comment if you want to comment. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. There's no point in being here if you're not going to subscribe. And as I always say, I love you, love you, love you with the greatest love of all. And I will see you all in the next video.